importantly for tonight's topic as a current parent in the Seneca Valley cluster and a past PTA president. Thank you to Jason Makstein for the invitation this evening. There are quite a few candidates on the stage this evening, and so we will move through questions and responses as quickly as possible, giving every candidate an equal opportunity to comment. Tonight's forum will proceed as follows. After brief introductions from all of our candidates, you will be asked, I feel like I'm looking there, but I should be looking to you.
Yeah.
After brief introductions from all of our candidates, you will be asked 2 to 3 questions, depending on time, that have been submitted from the Moderately MOCO audience. There were dozens of thoughtful and educated questions submitted, and we will not have time to dive into all of the topics of interest tonight. We have curated questions into the most frequently mentioned topics of interest. Each candidate will be given 60 seconds to respond, and then any candidate who wishes to make a rebuttal will be given 30 seconds and wish to do so. I know that's not a lot of time, but there are a lot of you. I will choose the order of responses, generally right to left or left to right across the stage, or by race, at large, or one of the district races. Please share and pass the microphones among you. There are 2 wireless mics right up there. And I will be keeping time on this little device in front of me, and I'll raise a paddle when you have 10 seconds remaining in your time. The second part of our forum will proceed to yes/no questions when you will use the paddles in front of you. The third part of our forum will entail taking questions directly from our audience here in person this evening. Those questions may be directed at the entire field of candidates, in which case we will proceed as described prior, or may be directed to candidates in the specific at-large or district races, in which case those candidates may all respond. Please note that I expect our audience to be responsible in wording and only ask questions in good faith. No personal attacks of any kind and no foul language will be permitted. My decision to closing down a question or any comments will be final in this regard. A couple of administrative items. The Board of Elections is here tonight to help anyone to register to vote. Water is available for anyone who needs it. Parking is free in the garage, and restrooms are out the door and down your hall to the right. This session will be recorded for Moderately MOCO's online audience. Now, on to our forum. Any questions from you? Jason, is it okay if I turn this so I can see the candidates? Thank you. Sorry. This is better. Okay. So, question 1. Safety of our students and staff is at the top of many Moderately MOCO audience members' minds and was a topic of interest in many of the submitted questions. What are your thoughts on school safety, SROs in schools, and what specific changes will you implement if elected to improve school safety? I'd like to take our, oh, you know what? I didn't give you a chance to introduce yourselves. I'm so sorry. Apologies. Let's go from left to right across the stage, and please take 60 seconds to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to speak and listen and be part of this conversation as we think about such an important governance body for our school district. My name is Melissa Kim, and I am one of the candidates for the at-large seat this year. I am a mom of 2 kids who are one is in elementary school, one's in middle school. My husband and I moved to the district over 20 years ago, many years before we had kids, because we were told that Montgomery County's district schools were the best in the region. And without thinking much more about that, we bought the house that we could afford and we moved here. And frankly, except for the fabulous teachers we've certainly met along the way, we've been kind of unimpressed with the whole experience. It's been, it feels like a bit of a machine that's doing what it was built to do, but thinking about change and improvement and doing things differently, it seems to be really hard to do here in Montgomery County, so that's really what's inspiring me to run for the school board. I bring to this role not only the role of mom of 2 kids, but also a person who's been in education. Oh gosh, am I over time?
No, just 10 seconds.
Oh, okay, great. I've been, my unique profile is that I've been a teacher, a principal, a systems academic chief officer, as well as a deputy superintendent running a school system with lots of positivity, and I'm really excited about bringing both the professional as well as personal to the Roaring Bowl member. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. There are a couple of wireless mics floating around if you feel like you can't use your outdoor voice.
Hi, my name is Rita Montoya. I'm a mom of 2 elementary school kids, a PTA president, a former juvenile public defender, and a candidate for at-large Board of Education member. If elected, I'll work hard to rebuild community trust in MCPS, to deliver timely, culturally competent, and consistent information to MCPS families, to help build and establish tailored programs that serve all of our students' needs, including those that need enrichment, and to ensure safety in our school buildings for staff and students. I firmly believe that kids need connection and consequences. Restorative justice is not enough. If we want to make sure that our children are positioned to thrive, to achieve in school, and once they graduate in the real world, then we need to set them up to achieve, not fail. If elected, I'll work hard to gain your trust and to work with my colleagues and elected officials to build a better education for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montoya.
Okay, sir? Okay. Welcome everybody to this forum. Jason, thank you for putting this on. I got a lot of respect for Jason. He always covers school issues, and I read all his articles and everything that comes off that website. So thank you, Jason, for putting this on and being such an important person in this school system arena. Okay. My name is Sharif Hidayat. I'm a Montgomery County resident. I grew up here. I grew up in Aspen Hill. I went to the police academy, became a police officer, and did that for over 20 years. And I was a community service officer, so I handled a lot of complaints, a lot of problems that required a lot of ability to collaborate with agencies and nonprofit organizations and the interfaith community to bring people together to hash things out to get results. Okay. 30 seconds? 10 more seconds, okay. I'm running for school board because I'm a dad. I cared immensely to bring back the school resource officer program because I believe that's the #1 challenge facing our kids today.
Thank you, Mr. Hidayat.
Greetings. Thank you to the distinguished members of Moderately MOCO for digitally organizing this event and creating a means of communication for candidates like myself to disseminate our campaign message to stakeholders and constituents. Montgomery County residents, you are owed an apology. I want to take this time out to apologize to stakeholders for having to endure the precipitous decline of our beloved education system. Over the past years, you have endured unprecedented learning losses post-pandemic, perpetual embarrassment because oversight of our public pedagogy is non-existent, total disregard for your substantive input in the curriculum, and $15 million of your money set to fire due to administrative malfeasance. I've heard your warranted complaints, and it's time for change. It's time to erode the status quo, and it's time for new faces and fresh ideas. With your support, our office will institute mechanisms for individualized learning, extended learning, wage parity for paraeducators, CTE expansion, and an oversight committee. Thank you guys so much for your time and consideration.
Would you like to share your name real quick?
Yes, Fitzgerald Mofor.
Thank you, Mr. Mofor.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Lynne Harris. My pronouns are, no, it's not.
It is.
It's on.
You can make it to voice. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're right.
Up here.
Yeah, there's
Check. Sorry. Oh, there it goes.
Hello.
Sorry about that. Hello, everyone. My name is Lynne Harris. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm currently an at-large member on the Board of Education who believes very deeply in the mission to create truly inclusive and affirming classrooms and schools in which everybody, every day, who comes into our buildings feels safe, welcome, and valued, being exactly who they are, and classrooms that present all of our amazing students with windows and mirrors, so that they both see themselves reflected in the curriculum they're taught and the books they read, but also get a better understanding of individuals and others whose lives and experiences are different from their own. I have the great privilege of working with students all across this county every day, and they amaze me with their generous, open-minded curiosity and their deep commitment to social justice and looking out for others as well as themselves. And continuing to create a system where we do not make decisions without their input is one of my main priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
We'll just keep passing the same mic, and
Okay,
then,
that's fine.
and then we'll go on to the next one if it runs out of batteries or something.
Good evening, everyone. I am Shebra Evans, and I am running for the District 4 seat and currently the representative for the District 4 seat on the Montgomery County Board of Education. I too want to thank Moderately MOCO for hosting this event tonight and just look forward to all of your questions. A little bit about me. I have deep roots in District 4. I've been in that district for over 23 years. My husband and I have 2 daughters that have gone through the public school system. Sydney is a graduate, currently in college, and Sierra is at John F. Kennedy High School. I've been able to make myself ingratiated into the county by being involved at the PTA level, at the local level, as well as at the county level. And those opportunities have allowed me to be able to serve the district, speaking to our local and state elected officials on issues that are really important to our community. And so I just want you all to know that I am deeply committed to equity and excellence, and Montgomery County is doing its work to ensure that our information is disaggregated by race and poverty. So look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Hi, my name is Bethany Mandel. I am also running for District 4, but anyone can vote for me. It's like one of the perks of Montgomery County. I am a mom of 6, and I'm a journalist, and that's what spawned my interest in MCPS, because over the course of the last few years, I have heard from countless parents who have been frustrated with MCPS on a whole host of issues, not just starting, but at the peak with COVID, and the fact that kids were locked out of their classrooms for a year and a half, and they had members of the Board of Education who were saying that they thought that excellence and equity were very important. Meanwhile, kids who were of the lowest socioeconomic bracket were locked out of their classrooms for a year and a half, and we're seeing the results of those school closures and the mask mandates, with test scores, with attendance, with crime and behavior issues. And I reported for the Free Press about the opt-out issue, and I was, unlike members of the Board of Education, actually talking to those parents. They felt locked out, they felt unlistened to, and I decided on the last day of filing that if no one else sane was going to run, then I would. So here I am.
Thank you, Ms. Frankel.
Good evening, my name is Rick Moy. I am seeking your trust and your vote to get me into the Board of Education. Why? I first heard about Montgomery County when I attended the Naval Academy in Annapolis. This was a wonderful place to bring my fellow midshipmen. The culture was rich, the education was very, very well known. So I wanted to bring my family here when I had a chance to move to DC for work. So each year we invest billions into Montgomery County, the public school system. I'd like to see a better return on this investment. As a member of my local PTA, I've seen how great and effective a solid partnership between parents, teachers, students, and the community can be. Okay, now I'll bring my decades of experience as a naval officer, instructional trainer, and empathy as a parent of two of my kids right there, to work for you. All right, so thank you, Rick Moy.
Thank you, Mr. Moy.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Brenda Diaz. I'm running for District 2 for Board of Education. I'm so happy to be here tonight. I guess I could start off by talking about me, but really I want to turn this night over to you because this is about the community's needs. And so just very quickly, show of hands, for those of us who are parents here, how many of you are excited about sending your children to school every day? Okay, you are in the minority, my friends. That means that we are doing things very poorly. I am running for, thank you. I am running for Board of Education because I have 20 years of experience as a teacher in private school, public school. I work at Gaithersburg High School as a social studies teacher, ESOL, AP, on level. I coached, I've been on the PTA. I was an administrator at a private school. whatever it was in education, I've done it. I've accomplished it and I've excelled at it. I believe in our teachers, I believe in our students, and I think it's time that MCPS and the board show that they believe in them as well. We need policies that are constructive and positive for our students. We start off by—
Please complete your statement, Ms. Diaz.
Is that 10 seconds? Way over? Oh, I didn't hear that. I was on a roll. Thanks. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all for your introductions. I'll repeat our instructions for the first part of our forum for our friends who stepped in just a couple minutes after we started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Paula Ross. I'll be serving as your moderator today. You will be asked 2 to 3 questions depending on time that have been submitted from the Moderately MOCO audience. There were dozens of thoughtful and educated questions submitted, and we won't have time to dive into all of them because there are a lot of you and only a few minutes. We have curated questions into the most frequently mentioned topics of interest. Each candidate will be given 60 seconds to respond to any question that they like, and then any candidate who wishes to make a rebuttal will be given 30 seconds in which to do so. You have some wireless mics there, you can pass amongst yourselves. I will choose the order of responses, generally right to left or left to right across the stage, or by race at large, District 2 or District 4. I will be keeping time on this little device. You all weren't paying attention to me when I put the placard up for 10 seconds, so I'm just gonna say 10 seconds really lightly into the microphone. Sound good? Okay, so questions from the audience as we get started? 4? Okay, 4 minutes, okay. So, on to our forum. Our first question. Safety of our students and staff is at the top of many Moderately MOCO audience members' minds and was a topic of interest in many submitted questions. What are your thoughts on school safety, SROs in schools, and what specific changes will you implement, if elected, to improve school safety? We will start over here and go right to left across the stage with Ms. Diaz. You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, so in regards to safety, we know, I think we had a parent recently, Chris Persak, that gave testimony about what was going on in NCPS. And then we also had a teacher from Kennedy High School who was talking about how our schools basically are an open air drug market at this moment. Outrageous. And why is that? Because they've removed the SROs. MCAP recommended that we keep the SROs in our schools, and the current Board of Education refused to listen to MCAP. This is not the first time that they've done that, and their decisions have been disastrous for our students and for our community. So I want to bring back the SROs. I would like to revise the Student Code of Conduct. Restorative justice practices are not working. We see it time and time again, so it's just time to institute consequences. Our teachers need to be authority figures in the classroom. They need to be supported by administration. Right now, we know that teachers are not supported by administration. Administrators are not supported by central office. Why? Because they're ignored by the board. That has to change.
Mr. Moy.
Good evening, I'm Rick Moy again. I've had a chance to speak to some parents about their children's experiences. We've had some anti-Semitic physical violence throughout the schools. That's one thing we gotta solve, right? We can't allow that. Drugs, weapons, we've heard it all. Magruder High School, even right next door to us here in Richard Montgomery High School. I agree with some of the proposals that the Board of Education has proposed. It's finally coming out. Vaping detection. When I visit schools, you can smell it in the air. It shouldn't even be there. You know how harmful it is for your lungs? So I've spoken to a lot of SROs, community engagement officers, when I was part of the Montgomery County Citizens Academy. So I spoke to them. I spoke to the resource officers at Rockville Police Department. They want to be part of the school system, more proactive. Thank you.
Ms. Frankel.
Hi. I was at a doctor's appointment with a couple of my kids a few days ago, and I feel like things that happen sometimes are not fate. They're just like God saying, like, this is the person that you need to talk to. My daughter walked up to a police officer and she said, "Thank you for your service." And he got down on one knee and he had a whole conversation with her. I said, "Sir, it seems like you are very good at this. Do you have some experience with children? You're not the normal police officer that says thank you and sort of moves on." And he said, "I was a school resource officer for many years." And I said, "Oh, that's so interesting. I'm running from Montgomery County Public Schools Board of Education, and that is one of my topics. And that's, part of my platform. And he gave me an earful. And he told me so much about how he felt abandoned, how he felt unappreciated and unlistened to. And he
10 seconds.
he expressed to me, Ehrlich had made up his mind when we walked into a meeting about the continuation of this program, and it left our officers feeling unsupported and unwelcome, and we need to be back in schools. I agree.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Sure. So a lot of what we see playing out in our country is actually coming into our school buildings. What it will take is not only the work of MCPS, but our community partners as well to help us. We're fortunate around the vaping that we have a medical doctor. Not many school districts, if any at all, have a medical doctor on hand. And so if you tune into our recent board meeting, we talked a lot about some of the upgrades that we're gonna make and actually what that cost will look like. So there's always more that we can do, and I'm definitely supportive of doing more. In regards to our community engagement officers, what I do believe is important to have relationships with our students. There's not crimes happening in our in our schools, and so we wanna make sure the people that are in there are really working with our principals. They're taking the training that's necessary, they're culturally responsive, they're trauma informed, and it's always important that our parents know what's going on, they feel comfortable and feel safe with their students coming to school. So it's a continued dialogue that we need to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Yes, thank you for the question. Any conversation about school safety really can't start without props to our student member of the board, Sami Saeed, and his school safety and security resolution from last fall, which was very much informed by crowdsourcing student voice from all across the county, what they lived, what they experienced, what they thought would make things better. And that is where you have to start this conversation, from the customer perspective, what they see, what they experience, what they know would help. And I do agree, we need to do a much better job of centrally supporting our school-based leaders so that they feel very confident in their ability to implement the student code of conduct and our disciplinary structures, and that they will be supported in that. But we also have to be very, very aware that the school to prison pipeline in Maryland is real, and Maryland incarcerates more young men of color than almost any other state. And our students know that as well. And so making sure that we are doing what we can to create systems where students feel safe is just as important from a social, emotional perspective.
Thank you. Mr. Mofor.
Yes, so from a fundamental standpoint, I understand the nefariousness of the school to prison pipeline, and it's something that I dealt with personally as a student at MCPS. However, RJ is an injustice to victims. We need a complete overhaul of our student code of conduct. Right now, fighting, it's maximum probably a level 3 offense. It should be a level 5 offense and suspension. Teachers are leaving the school district because of behavior issues here in our education system. To conclude my message, so to speak, is we have to have SROs back into the school. I had Officer Maverick, who was my SRO at Sherwood High School. He was a role model in my community, and we felt safe. I think, yes, we have to focus on school to prison pipeline. However, we need to prioritize student, teacher, and administrative safety. Thank you.
You didn't even need the whole 60 seconds. Let me reset that.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from your own 2 ears. The incumbents, both of them, Shebra and Lynne, said there's no crime going on in Montgomery County schools, which is an absolute farce. Kids are bringing guns to schools, knives to schools. They're overdosing. There's 5 overdoses in Gaithersburg High School this year alone. Are you kidding me? This is the disconnect that the school board has with the community. I'm the only person on this panel that actually worked with Officer Meverick that he's referencing, Joe Lowry, Anna Walker, all the SROs. They shared my office. I was the community service officer at the 4th District Station. The SRO program is absolutely emphatically not the pipeline to prison. The pipeline to prison is getting them out of the schools because there's more problems going on now. We have a problem with graduation rates. We have truancy issues.
10 seconds.
And the only thing that is up is violent crimes. You've seen the videos for yourself about the assaults that are going on in schools, okay? So that's just to show you they are not, I'm the only person that will bring the SRO program back into the school when I get elected to MCPS.
Thank you. Connections and consequences. Kids need both. It's not one or the other. Restorative justice is not going to work. The current model is not going to work. None of these things are going to work by themselves, right? When we talk about school safety, we're talking about a variety of things. We're talking about violence. SROs, it might be that some of our high schools and middle schools do need to have SROs or some sort of variation on the model back in schools to get things under control, and those are conversations that we need to start having. It may be, and I know of some schools where their security team said, we have mostly the kinds of normal things you would expect from high schools. It's not any escalated events. And there may be schools that are like that. Again, we need to have these conversations. But we're also talking about drugs. We heard from Mr. Grebel, who's a teacher at Kennedy High School at the last board meeting, talking about cannabis odor in the halls. This is absolutely unacceptable. I've reached out to the Maryland Cannabis Administration, who has connected me with the Maryland Department of Health so that I can schedule a meeting with them to discuss this and what we're going to do about this, because our children should be able to be in safe learning environments free from violence, drugs, and hate bias. Thank you.
Public school learning is one of the mandatory experiences of being an American citizen. And with that, we as families trust that schools are going to take care of our kids. And clearly, it's not happening. Kids are not feeling safe in schools. And when you're not feeling safe in schools, you can't open your brain and your heart to learn and connect and push for the rigor that we're all seeking and choosing MCPS for. So I absolutely think that if safety, which is the most fundamental base level expectation that we expect for children in school, when I send my children to school, I expect them to be safe. I expect someone to know them, care about them, push them, support them, and certainly not have them exposed to bullying, anti-hate, all sorts of drugs, paraphernalia. I just don't want that for my kids, and I'm sure you don't want that for your kids. So I also am a supporter of the SRO program. When I was a middle school principal, I had a deep and caring and open relationship with our SROs, who were really confidants and support folks for our students. And because our SROs really worked in the community, they could make the school to community connection and support kids way beyond school hours as well. So I have a lot more to say that, but I guess I lost my time.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. For any candidate who would like to rebut any of the points made today in your first 60-second remarks, we'll go again back across the table, starting with Ms. Diaz.
Is that one? Say that one more time.
For any candidate who would like to take 30 seconds to make a rebuttal of any point made during the initial 60-second responses, you have 30 seconds to do so, starting with Ms. Diaz and going back across the table.
I would like to reiterate the same point that Sharif made about how foolish it is to say that there's no crime going on in MTPS. I mean, I was a teacher at Gaithersburg High School for 7+ years, and I saw it in my classroom, and I heard my fellow colleagues tell me about, this is back like before the pandemic, before things went out of control. Like there were students already vaping at that time. So yes, we need our SROs. Yes, we need to revise the Student Code of Conduct. It's an abject failure.
Thank you. Mr. Mui?
Thanks. I'm not gonna object to my own statement. What I'm gonna say is there needs to be a division of labor. Teachers are already busy doing academic work. They're not gonna police the halls. The admin staff, they're busy running the school day. They're not policing the halls. We need dedicated people that are going to police the halls. We don't need people to roughhouse. We simply want enforcement, so when the time comes, that someone's already there protecting our kids. Thank you.
One of the nice things I think from tonight is that everyone who is running that's not an incumbent is on message, and the message is things are not okay, things are not safe, we need change. And I think that that's an incredible message that I think we all have. And the question we're getting on a lot of panels is about SROs, but it doesn't just stop with SROs. We need to have a real conversation about restorative justice. I want to steal your line about, what is the line? Restorative justice, what is it?
It's an injustice to victims.
It's an injustice to victims. I'm going to steal that and co-opt it. He's exactly right. At future panels, I'm just going to do it.
So our students talked about what having an SRO does to them and what kind of triggers it causes and creates for them. In terms of when you think of a police officer, the things that police officers are known to do is not happening in our schools. But what we do need to do is get to the root cause of the drugs and why they're coming into the schools, to get our students access to resources that is actually something that the county would be doing. And in regards to the guns, right? We would need the weapon detection, that detect guns coming into our schools. But I was referring to the crimes that are associated with police officers happening in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just, first of all, say I never said there was crime in schools, but I think we need to look very closely at what are the incidents that we're experiencing and how can we effectively address those incidents without doing surgery with a sledgehammer. And we know when implemented well,
10 seconds.
we have the data to show it, restorative justice does work. But again, it's when it's implemented well and with fidelity. And what we're asking for now is triangulation data so we can see the correlation between where schools have implemented that program well and where we're seeing serious incidents so that we can make data-based decisions, not emotional.
Thank you.
Yes, I would just like to expound on some of the things I said earlier. I went to a business meeting at the Board of Education, I believe last week, and there was a teacher there at a special education school that stated they have 78 students, but in this year they've had over 1,200 behavioral issues. The lack of substantive discipline in our education system
10
is
seconds.
moving teachers away. They're going out to the school district in droves. We have to protect them and make that a priority. Thank you.
The very program that is being accused of is contributing to the pipeline to prison, the false narrative of it being a pipeline to prison. Let me tell you about PJ Gregory, who is the SRO over at Einstein. He's the one who said, Sharif, can you come with me and mentor kids with the state's attorney's truancy prevention program? Does that sound like an officer that wants to contribute to the pipeline to prison or actually look out for these kids? That's what the SRO program does. Thank you.
Thank you. I know kids who are afraid to get on the school bus in the morning because it's not just in the school buildings that these things are happening. I know a family whose very young child was choked in a stairwell and it only stopped because another child happened to walk in. This is all unacceptable. So, and these are happening at the elementary school level. I need to know that my children are safe when I send them to the school buildings in the morning, and they can't be if these schools are not fully staffed, if class sizes aren't managed, and if the kids don't know that they cannot behave however they want, because there are real consequences in life, and we can't set them up to fail when they become adults.
Maybe to close, I'd just like to focus on the fact that as much as we all talked about student safety, and that is such an important thing, there's reasons why our kids are acting out in our schools, which is a reflection of our community and our larger society. And in addition to all the SRO work, we do need to invest a ton more work in mental health, even in the elementary school levels, because the stress is there. And we need to look deeper into the actions to how or will we individually support our kids and put in the resources to make that possible, certainly in SROs, but as well as other programs.
Thank you all very much. To move on to our question 2. To further build on the question of safety, questions were specifically submitted asking about addressing increasing and persistent drug use in schools, as evidenced by the smell of cannabis and the open use of vaping pens. What's your specific plan to stop drug use in schools? And we will go from...
You may mic over for that.
We started with Ms. Kim last time, right?
No.
We'll start with Ms. Kim this time.
Okay.
You have 1 minute.
Yes, drug usage in school, even if it's being legalized in the state, is illegal for minors and should not be in our schools. So we need to make sure that we're sending a very clear message to our students and to our families about what our expectations are and clarify that, and certainly have a united stance on how we will respond to students who are experimenting, using, and or making it seem like a great thing in our schools. When our teachers are smelling it and seeing it, we need to be clear of what the actions they can take and how it needs to get to the principal's office, and be clear in holding kids accountable. Because once you don't hold the kids accountable, then they know that that's an opening, and we are then creating an open message that we will ignore this and forego it. And I really would like for us to address it, talk about it, and make sure that there's clear actions that follow up with those consequences.
Thank you, Ms. Montoya. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, and I'm so glad that this question came up because this is actually something that I've been working on in the work that I do for the past several years since medical cannabis even became on the market in Maryland. I'm a parent, I have children, I know lots of children. kids do not need to have access to cannabis. There's very limited circumstances that require all kinds of medical approval for children maybe who have seizures and such to access that. But in our schools, it has no place. I watched the testimony of Mr. Grable, again from Kennedy High School last week. I immediately contacted Maryland cannabis administrators to find out who do I talk to, what's being done, what is the incident reporting system, what education is being put out, what type of prevention is being done. I was then connected to the Maryland Department of Health because that's the individuals, and I'm in the process of scheduling an appointment with the Cannabis Public Health Committee to discuss these very issues, because the state,
10 seconds.
after legalizing this, needs to pay attention and needs to figure out how are the kids getting access to these drugs, how are they bringing them into schools, and we need to have a statewide incident reporting system so that they can understand the gravity of this situation and then put some funding toward making it stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montoya. Mr. Hidayat.
We need to look at legislation to start finding the parents. That's my answer. There will not be accountability just on the kids alone. The kids are sometimes bringing the drugs from their houses where the parents are full knowledge that the drugs are coming out of their house, okay? We need to start looking at other ways that we haven't used, non-traditional ways to get the message across. I think every principal should start off the school year saying something about drug use, and that there would be a zero tolerance for drug use or possession of drugs in the schools. And you have to start suspending without principals feeling the fear of suspending too many students. That is over their head, and that's the reason why they're not reporting it. You all know it, I know it, I knew it as a police officer, that's what's going on. And until we resolve that, where the school board actually
10 seconds.
puts something in writing that says no principal nor any teacher will be held accountable for reporting this, it'll never get done. They need to be supported.
Thank you, Mr. Mofor.
Yes, a great way to curtail drug use in schools is extended learning and extracurricular opportunities. When I taught in an impoverished community in Mobile, Alabama, we saw that students that stayed after school had a higher propensity to go to college, become productive citizens of their community, and largely stay out of drug use. And this is not anecdotal. The Economic Policy and Research Center also stated that there's a 10% decrease at schools that utilize extracurricular activities. That's something that I want to make a focal point of our campaign, is to give students those opportunities to essentially curtail drug use, which is a problem. We've seen a 120% increase in youth fatal overdoses to MCPS, and I plan on slashing that. Thank you.
Ms. Harris.
We have an amazing health officer in MCPS, Dr. Kapunen, who has been doing a great work in conjunction with our county health department, students, staff, families, around the education piece that is central, because you hit it right on the head. There's a reason students are choosing to use drugs, choosing to make bad decisions in schools, and the school system can't solve those problems alone. It has to be a comprehensive community-based decision. Using the power of our positive youth development partners and our street outreach network partners and DHHS to really get to the root cause and to partner with our law enforcement partners to help both identify counterfeit drugs that are making their way into the county and into the hands of, well, all of our residents, but also kids. But also
10 seconds.
looking at the incidents, making sure that there's a very clear line of authority in schools with administrators and our law enforcement. When those incidents happen, they need to be addressed immediately.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Ms. Evans.
Sure, Ms. Harris hit it right on the nail. I was going to mention Dr. Kapunen as well, and how it's important that we continue to engage our parents. The system held quite a few forums this past school year on drug use that was taking place and happening with a lot of our students. Families are reaching out to their principals asking how they can help to support their families. And so the more that we continue to work with our partners here in Montgomery County, the better it will be for not only our students, but our school system as well. And it wouldn't hurt if we could actually embed some information in our curriculum so that our students at the secondary level at least is made aware at an early age what it's like, what the encounter could what kind of impact the encounter could have in doing drugs. And also just, as it was stated, our principals know that they have the authority to do what they need to do with their schools, and they know how to best support their students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frankel.
I'm not sure principals do know how to handle it because they're not handling it. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We're watching that take place in Montgomery County Public Schools right now. One thing that I'm just flabbergasted at, someone who grew up with a zero tolerance policy in my public school district, is that my mom would be called and it would be unpleasant. And I think that the unpleasantry does not need to stop with the children, although there needs to be consequences like suspension, all these things. But we need to bring parents in whenever anyone, not me of course, but some of my friends, they ran afoul of things that were in school or with law enforcement. Their parents had to come in, and their parents had to take part in conversations with law enforcement. Scared straight, all of those things had to involve parents. And that involvement with parents, I have heard over and over again, is lacking here.
Thank you. Mr. Moy.
Thanks, Rick Moy here. So let me give you, we've heard so many stories, so let me give you one. I was on a Cub Scout trip to Rockville Police Station, right down the street. And while we were there, we saw a alert come up, a 911 call, where it was for College Garden Elementary School. And my kids right there, they were in the crowd and they asked, what is that? Turned out some kids ingested what they thought were candy, and turned out to be narcotics, right? Vaping, marijuana, fentanyl, well that's a nice killer right there. One dose and you don't come back from that. Prescription drugs, these are very readily available. It doesn't take a genius to figure out how to get some of this stuff. The way to solve this is non-tolerance. We cannot tolerate allowing our kids to take this. Also, one trip to United Therapeutics. They do lung research there. They'll show you a real lung that's gone through smoking and vaping. One look, you'll never do it again. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz, 1 minute.
So recently I attended a fentanyl survivor session, conference, whatever you want to call that. And outside they had one of those trailers where you could go in and see how your child might hide their drugs in their room. So all of the different secret places. And there were police officers there, so I took the opportunity to talk to them, and lo and behold, there was an SRO. And this is how critical things have gotten in our school buildings. He was actually recommending that we introduce Narcan training in our schools. That's how bad it is. So, I mean, obviously, I don't know if you want to go that far, but if that's where it is, then we need to do it. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is about the extracurricular activities. We do need to expand and reach out to the community. There are a number of programs like the 480 Club and Out of School Time that provide students lots of opportunities to get that energy out and be involved in a healthy way in their community. So that's something that we want to encourage more and more.
Thank you. And this time I think we'll take the 30-second rebuttals and we'll go from Ms. Kim. That way Ms. Diaz gets the last voice on the rebuttals. I would ask you to keep your 30-second rebuttals to clarify or counter points that were made during the initial responses. Ms. Kim.
Hi, I didn't get to answer the question about what I would do differently about it, which is when I worked in Virginia and their school systems, one of the smartest things we did back then, this was like over 15 years ago, is when a student was found using drugs, they had to go to an out-of-school, community-based sort of program before coming back, often involving parents, always involving parents, so that there was no leaving that to chance to see what that was a part of. So I would really absolutely recommend doing that as a board member.
Thank you. I think we absolutely need to bring parents in and families in. Of course, this is twofold, right? We need to remove the access. We need to figure out how kids are getting access to these vaping devices and drugs. And then we also need to treat them. We need to figure out what is that unmet need. Do they have anxiety? Are they feeling nervous? Maybe they're feeling nervous about going to school because it's so violent. So we need to figure out, yes, what is that need? And then we need to get to the root cause so that we can figure out what types of solutions that we can have, whether it's adding extracurriculars so that kids are motivated to invest in themselves, whether it's that some may have the level of need of outpatient treatment or something like that. Thank you.
I'd like to use my time just to say the incumbents continue to say things that are not working. They keep saying, well, we do this and we have a doctor that does this, and it continues to produce the same results. The same results are, it's getting worse. Actually, it's not the same results. It's getting worse. We need to go back to the way it was when parents were held accountable for what their kids do in school. Until we create that, because that's a force multiplier if you think about it. You're holding them accountable, they are definitely gonna hold the kids accountable more than the criminal justice system, the school system, or any other type of system. Once they're inconvenienced, they're gonna start taking more interest in their kids' behavior. Thank you.
We have a drug epidemic in our county and in schools. And just as Mrs. Diaz said earlier, we have to fully subsidize the 480 Club. Mr. Hooks is saving lives in Germantown and Upper County. That's the truth right now. These children, they need an outlet, whether it's in arts and craft, whether it's in culinary arts, whether it's entrepreneurship, or even just athletics. Kids need an outlet and an alternate side of drugs. Thank you.
I agree. Having more out-of-school time activities to keep students and young people engaged in activities in which they see value is very protective, as is having a single trusted adult. But we really can't have this conversation about students without students. And we have to acknowledge too that the opioid and drug epidemic is not isolated to that young age group. It is intergenerational. It is any demographic you can imagine. So the solutions have to similarly be comprehensive.
Yes, so I'll just say, you know what, we can't do this work without our parents. This is why it's called school-family partnership. COVID has exacerbated a lot of what we're seeing. And so what we've had to do is employ more social workers, school psychologists, and counselors. And so what we've had happen is a student well-being team that's coming together. Our social workers just recently got an award where over 4,600 students access our social workers, and this year alone, 1,700 students are saying they need additional support. It's something that the school cannot do by themselves. The drugs are coming into the school, they're not in the school. Thank you.
That was my talking point, but instead of saying COVID did this, our response to COVID did this. The fact that we closed the schools, kept the kids in masks, and then made extracurriculars into something that was not interesting and an optional. All of those decisions made by the current board, we were extremists in Montgomery County. We kept our schools closed longer than almost any other county in the country. We are now facing the consequences of the decisions that were made by the people on the current board. We do need more kids involved in extracurricular activities, but they've missed years of them because of the decisions made during COVID.
So earlier I heard Ms. Harris mention correlation and data and decision. My eyes light up because that's what I do, Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. So this is my field, and she's talking about root cause. I don't need more studies to know what root cause is out there. The celebrities out there, people on the street, they're all glamorizing smoking, vaping, drugs. It's awesome. I met Eugene earlier. I had to say his name 3 times to remember it. Kids need this repetition. They need to be reinforced from teachers, parents, community, that this is not acceptable. And if we're only getting it on one side and no school officers, leniency, it's allowed in school, it's gonna perpetuate because there's nothing stopping it.
I think one of the things that we also need to consider is that beyond the extracurricular activities, we have to look at our academic program. Our academic program is not challenging our students. We're failing our students academically. Their scores in reading and writing are abysmal. And so we need, why would you go to school if school is not doing anything for you? If your teacher is struggling and she's not able to maintain the class in order, if you know that you can get up and go to the bathroom whenever you want, like what would be the point? So we need to reintroduce academic rigor. We need to introduce student accountability back into the classroom when it comes to their programs, when they're reading and writing and math. Like, this is basic stuff. And so we need to go, I hate saying go back to the basics,
Please
but
finish
that's
your
where we're
statement.
at, like literally.
Thank you. Jason, do you want to check out that line? Thank you.
The other one's already.
60-second tech break.
Hello? You can use this one.
Thank you. Okay, on to question 3. Again, you'll have 60 seconds to make an initial response and then a 30-second rebuttal response. Parental trust has eroded due in part to a lack of transparency and effective communication, says our Moderately MOCO responders. What concrete actions will you take to address this? And we'll start with Ms. Diaz.
One of the things I think about, I kind of giggled right now, is that when I was in MCPS, and I still hear this now from my friends who are still in, is how all the announcements are made on Friday night. When we're done with the week, we're exhausted, we want to move on with our activities as a family, we want to be with our children. This is what MCPS does. They issue announcements on Friday night. No, first of all, we need to stop that. So this is one basic thing. Can we have our Monday morning announcements? Just as we study social media, which I've had to do, when is the best time to post? Why doesn't MCPS know when is the best time to make announcements? So that's like one of the ways that we can build parental trust. Another thing is that we need to engage parents back, and that means like changing the times of our board meetings. That means increasing the times that parents can give commentary, or the community can give comments. We're at 2 minutes, it needs to go back up to 3, maybe even longer. These are things that we need to consider. We need to have board meetings in various locations. We need to have board meetings in schools. We need to meet with parents where they are at.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. Mr. Moy.
Ms. Diaz couldn't have said it better. It's correct. School board meetings, I was criticized. I made a comment that school board meetings should be at night. They should be. Parents are excluded right now, working parents. I know the board needs to do business during the workday. I got that. Inconsistent communication. So Nicole and I are on the PTA at Bell, and I get more information from the PTA newsletters than I do from the school. So what's happening with my kids? How are they learning? Are they doing well? It's very sporadic. So better communication, bringing in the parents, having the school boards at different locations. That's great. Then you don't have to force other people to come to you, you go to them. That's a wonderful option. Thanks.
Thank you.
In my reporting on the opt-out controversy that happened over the summer, I showed up in the middle of the summer. It was blazing hot, like swampland total. And I showed up and I talked to some of the parents that were there. The leader of it, Wael, is an incredible force. And he told me it was a Muslim fast day that day. And they were all out there having not eaten or drank all day because they cared so deeply about their kids. And one thing that he said to me over the course of those conversations was, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here, but they won't let us in. They won't let us testify. We tried to be diplomatic here. We tried to have quiet conversations with members of the board, and we were shut out. We were told what we wanted for our own children didn't matter. And that's why at the end of all of our quiet attempts to fix this situation, which by the way started, as Brenda was talking about, all of these parents learned about the fact that they were no longer able to opt their children out of books like Pride Puppy in the bottom of an email right before spring break. And that was how they found out. And they tried to talk to principals, they tried to talk to teachers, they tried to talk to the school board, and they were shut out at every single opportunity until finally they started protesting outside the school board meetings. School board meetings
Please
were,
complete
by
your
the way,
sentence.
sorry, I didn't even hear the beeper. They usually cut my mic off. They
I don't
guided-
have the tech ability to
I
do
know,
that.
you should
I'm
work on that.
trusting
You
you
should work on
all.
that.
So just
Okay, I'll finish my
go
sentence.
with
I'll
me
finish my
here.
sentence. They were out there in the middle of the day because they scheduled the school road meetings on purpose to make them more difficult for normal parents to attend.
Ms. Evans.
Sure. So I value the voice of our community. As the chair of the Communication and Stakeholder Engagement Committee, I welcome parents to the committee to give their feedback. I take the feedback of our parent community, our guardians into consideration, and it has helped inform, shape policy and practices, and as well as programs. I will say that our budget could be more easy to read, and so that's a way to build trust, that people can pick up the budget and look at it and be able to understand and know. I think that's important. And what we can do better at is continue to make certain that as our students are progressing throughout their elementary, middle, and high school level, that we are showing you that how they're progressing, and showing you that we're monitoring their student performance. We're doing that now every month because the board wanted to ensure that parents could see that as their students were transitioning, that every step of the way that they were getting what they needed, and if not, we were making that course correction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, communities are not wrong. MCPS needs a wholesale culture shift in the way we could think about engaging and communicating with community. We need to set an expectation that we will be fearless in our communication with on all issues, because what I think I see now is being afraid to share bad news that people might think is not good, or being afraid to share news that some people won't like. But when you come forward, you treat people like they have brains, you treat people like they are reasonable, and you share with them early, not after a decision has been made, but you share with them early, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're thinking of doing, this is what you need to know, this is what might change. We want to engage with you in this conversation so that even if we get to the end of it, and you do not agree with the decisions that had to be made, you still understand them. And that requires, the board needs to be absolutely crystal clear, both within the information that we receive and the method, the way we communicate with the community. It just needs a whole session.
Yes, so one way I believe to strengthen overall confidence that parents have, trust, so to speak, and mitigate some of the lack of transparency is involving parents within the curriculum. Parents have a right to have an input of what their children are essentially being taught within the materials, et cetera, and so on. But I digress. I'm sure we will also have a question on that moving forward. But I really want to see more parental involvement in the RFP process. I believe that there are high levels of attrition and turnover in the Office of Superintendent because parents aren't involved. We have these kind of lukewarm mechanisms of involvement in terms of parents in these town halls, but it's not substantive. Parents need to be involved with the law firm that's hired in our national selection.
10 seconds.
Thank you.
Sometimes when I sit up here, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone listening to the incumbents' responses. It's like, what world are they living in? The irony is rich. Repeat the question one more time.
Parental trust has eroded due in part to a lack of transparency and effective communication, according to our Moderately MOCO responders. What concrete actions will you take to address this?
Moderately MOCO is, the irony is rich because Moderately MOCO is the one who produced a document that showed that the board approved over $100,000 during the McKnight controversy for public relations damages. They went and hired a consultant. Is that how you foster trust? They literally squandered over $100,000. The more I get into this election, the more I realize that the Board of Education is about contracts, cronyism, and corruption.
10 seconds.
And the only way we're going to solve this is that we have the honest conversations. You hear Lynne Harris say, we listen to the students. You have a student board member who, there's an article in MOCO 360 that says, you're not doing enough. So it's the execution that is the problem. We've identified the problem multiple times. It's in the execution, and the incumbents have not been able to do it in 4 years.
Thank you, Ms.
you.
Montoya.
Thank you. Parents definitely, like myself, have a lack of trust due to lack of transparency. We are not receiving culturally competent, clear, or timely information. Far too often, I see some families here from Darnestown Elementary here to advocate for their families and their students, and far too often we are shoved aside and we are not allowed to have a space or a voice. We're not involved in these conversations before decisions are made. When there are forums and town halls, it seems largely performative, as if it's something to check a box to say, well, hey, we invited the community, even though we know that the decision has already been made. So if elected, I will hold virtual office hours to connect with the community. I'll make sure that I provide a space for family voices without disparaging their views or weaponizing stereotypes against families for their beliefs. And I will work hard to make it easier to find information on the website so that we don't have to do things like request them through the Maryland Public Information Act, where we have to get information about our students and our schools to help our community address these issues. Thank you.
I agree with so much that's been said on this topic already, so try not to repeat it. But general thought is that if a school system really valued parents and parent partnership, and we actually thought about parents as our first and most important partners, that belief would change a system of decision-making, communications, transparency in how we do things. So I would really like to see Montgomery County shift their point of view on thinking about parents wholesale and not continue to do these performative experiences. For example, I watched many board meetings to get prepped for this decision to say, do I really want to do this? And I find it very unsatisfying when board meetings happen and there's no actual dialogue or discourse on any of the topics. People come, prepare testimony, submit it, but there's no actual clarity of like what happens with that. Like what happens as a result of that, and can we linger on a topic to actually get to moving an idea forward is really, that's the pattern I think over years, and I would like to really focus on that as a topic.
Great, and then I would like to start with Ms. Diaz and go back to the end so that Ms. Kim has the last word on this rebuttal. 30 seconds. I encourage you to speak to the points that were made during the initial 60-second responses and or to clarify any point that you made earlier.
I think what you've heard very clearly tonight is that the status quo cannot continue. And who is it that represents the status quo? We know who they are, the incumbents and MCEA, plain and simple. It's time to question the status quo directly, be bold, be courageous as members of the board, to ask questions, ask critical questions. You know, as someone who's worked in education for over 20 years, this is, I mean, I have the keen insight to be able to pull apart the little threads, you know, that keep the cronyism that Sharif mentioned and all of that corruption that's taking place within the system. We need to remove and question the status quo.
Thank you. A question for our candidates. Do I need to interrupt you at the 20-second mark during these 30-second responses? Is that okay? Okay.
If the system was working well, we wouldn't be trying to think up new ideas. It's not working, right? If we continue on with the same ideals, same people in place, nothing's gonna change. They can talk all they want, it's not gonna happen. So two things I wanna talk about is how is 2024. You can get text, email.
10 seconds.
I'd rather do a pull system, be available for me to go get the info. It's not hard to communicate with me. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that a lot of us are saying the same things, and I really want to drive home the message to voters again and again that Apple ballot is not your friend. All of the folks that have been sitting on the board for the last however many years who have gotten us to this place had an apple next to their name.
Seconds.
So I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, obviously vote for me, but do not vote for that Apple ballot, whatever you do, because that ballot will rot the whole system further.
I just want to share with everyone that I am available to meet for coffee, by email. You can call me by Zoom. I'm very open to doing whatever I need to do in order to do my board work and to engage our community. And that's what I've always done, including going to our cluster meetings. We have one on Wednesday in the Northeast
10 seconds.
Consortium. And so I just really appreciate having the dialogue with our community and to continue to encourage you to come to our public meetings as well as our public hearings to share and give comments and feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate any opportunity to engage with the community because you don't know what you don't know. And I also will admit my inbox is overflowing on any given day, so it's not easy to respond to every inquiry. But writ large, it's a bigger question about the system and how we
10 seconds.
stop viewing the announcement of a decision as a start of engagement, because should be the other way around. And I very much appreciate others who continue to carry that message forward.
Yes, and I would like to continue to expound on some of the things I said before. We have to have parents more engaged within the curricula and the selection of the law firms in terms of superintendent hires. There's a lot of attrition and turnover in that office. Since 2020, there's probably been 3 to 4 different school superintendents. I believe parents know better than activists, politicians, and political insiders.
I still think I'm in the twilight zone again from the responses that the incumbent said. Their solution, after being accused of cronyism and corruption, is take me out to coffee and I'm not going to respond to your emails. Unbelievable. We need change.
So I actually do agree that it seems like MCPS is afraid to show information that people won't like, information that won't make them look good. The difference, though, between myself and the incumbent is that I haven't been on the Board of Education for the past 3.5 years, where I had an opportunity to make a difference and to change that. And if elected, I will work very hard to change that because, like all of you, I am a parent too, and I need to know what's going on in my children's schools, and I can't do that when there's gatekeeping of information. Thank you.
One of the things I'm running on is the fact that I'm an expert education person. That's what I spent my life on. And yet, as an expert educator, I really had a hard time navigating who to get in touch with and how to navigate the central office as well as school system to get support for my kid when he needed it. The kid has 2 R's in his name. He could not say the letter R, and there's nothing I could do to get him any sort of speech services from the county. And they kept giving me special ed law, which is not accurate to actually get him the services, where I actually at some point gave up and got him the supports myself. Because I can. Many children and parents cannot. I would like for us to increase trust in our school system by making it more easier to navigate the system, to advocate for our kids' personal as well as for our community's kids.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. Okay, thank you, candidates, very much. To the second part of our forum with yes/no questions that have been submitted by Moderately MOCO online audience members. Please use the paddles in front of you to indicate a yes, the green side, or a no, the red side, in response to the following set of questions. Does everybody have a paddle? Okay. Question number 1. Are you in favor of reinstating final exams for all high school classes?
Raise them high. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 2. Are you in favor of using class rank in high schools as a reportable metric? Are you in favor of using class rank in high schools as a reportable metric? Thank you. Question 3. Are you in favor of eliminating the 50% rule for grading? Unanimous. Okay. Question 4. Are you in favor of implementing an advanced science course track for middle school? Unanimous. 5. Are you in favor of revamping the elementary school social studies curriculum to include a comprehensive overview of 20th century history, including the Depression, World War II, the Holocaust, the Cold War, FDR, and JFK. Thank you. Are you in favor of allowing parents to opt out of curriculum for religious reasons? Thank you. Question 7. Are you in favor of keeping schools open and without mask requirements during surges of seasonal illnesses? Are you in favor of keeping schools open and without mask requirements during surges of seasonal illnesses? Unanimous. Are you in favor? Oh, you can let it read. Okay. Are you in favor of reinstating the traditional SRO program in high schools with an officer assigned to each school? Thank you. 9. Are you in favor of implementing merit-based pay increases and bonuses for teachers? Thank you. 10. Are you in favor of an Inspector General-led full audit of MCPS finances? A unanimous response. Question 11. Are you in favor of a more widely available COSA program where students could select a high school where they might feel more comfortable? Sure, I'll repeat the question, and you should always feel free not to respond if you want to.
Say what COSA is.
Oh, change of school assignment, where students' families are able to apply to go to a school outside of their home district.
If they can apply.
Are you in favor of a more widely available COSA program where students could select a high school where they might feel more comfortable? Okay, thank you. Only 2 more. Are you in favor of county taxpayers funding MCPS over the maintenance of effort budget? Okay, thank you. Our last yes or no question. Are you in favor of the position of a Board of Education member becoming full-time and then aligning a pay structure similar to county council members? Okay, thank you. I urge our audience members to write emails to our candidates, and if you see a disparity in responses that you're curious about, please reach out. We're going to move on to the third part of our forum, where we take questions directly from our in-person to the entire field of candidates, in which case we'll proceed in the same format as before. Or you may direct your question to the specific at-large or district races. Our first 5 candidates over here are our at-large candidates, and we have District 4 and District 2. Please note that I expect our audience to be responsible in wording and ask only questions in good faith. No personal attacks of any kind and no foul language will be permitted. My decision will be final to close down any question or comments. Likewise, I know our candidates will also see all questions in good faith and make an effort to respond to each question from our audience tonight. When called upon, audience members, please state your name, your role in the school system, parent, teacher, staff, community member, and please share if your question is for the entire field of candidates or for a specific district or the at-large candidates only. Jason has the microphone, and Jason, who has our first question?
Hello? Good evening, all. Thank you for taking time tonight to speak to the community. My question's for all the candidates. My name is Caleb Michaud from Rockville. I have 2 children, 1st grade and 3rd grade. And my question is this: fundamental to any improvement is knowing clearly who is in charge. Please prioritize who is responsible for most influential to least influential of children's education in Montgomery County. The school board, MCPS administration, the teacher, the union, the parent. And as a reminder, all working together is not a prioritization.
Thank you for your question. We will start with Ms. Kim at the end of the at-large candidates and work our way down to Ms. Diaz. You have 60 seconds, Ms. Kim.
And just to clarify, we're to prioritize these in rank order of the most important to
Most
kids.
influential, most responsible.
Most influential, most responsible for kids' success,
Kids' education in Montgomery.
kids' education.
And Ms. Kim, I think you do have a microphone there. We'll
Oh,
start.
yes, I'm sorry.
We'll start
I
now.
gotta think about this for a second.
We'll give you a second. We'll start when you're ready.
Can I ask a question that everyone might benefit
Of course.
What it is or what it should be?
What it should be.
We know what it is.
If it's easier to do the top 3, you can do the top 3.
Okay, I'll say my ranking right now is parents are the most important voice in their kids' success and their learning. MCPS certainly creates the conditions for that. I inserted after MCPS number 2, I put number 3 as teacher. But I think before teacher and somewhere between MCPS and teacher is the role of school leadership and school leaders and what they need to do to create the conditions within the school for kids to succeed. Teacher, board, because I've seen many models where the board isn't essential to the success of a school system. And then certainly I rank the union as last.
Thank you, Ms. Montoya.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for that question and the clarification. I think that the bottom is definitely the union. From there, it gets a little tricky, and that's why you said kind of the top 3, right? So then we have the Board of Education, MCPS admin, and then parents. And parents, obviously, we have the most, or caregivers, because legal guardians, it's not always a biological parent, but we have the most contact with our children from the day to day. So we're definitely the most influential to them in their lives by far, whether it's their education or otherwise. It's tricky because the Board of Education makes the policies that MCPS has to implement, and we as parents have to operate within. So I think that, while we as parents have the most contact with our children, the Board of Education makes these policies that we have to follow, right? Our kids have to follow these rules. Thank you.
I appreciate the question. It's a very good question. We all know what it is right now. I was joking, but I wasn't joking. It's the parents first, and then the teachers, and then that community's support system, okay? As far as the Board of Education, I said to you guys, if you really want to know the truth, it's about contracts. It has nothing to do with children. I mean, if you guys knew how many questionnaires we all filled out, it was all from special interest groups, okay? That's who they cater to, okay? Nobody cares about the children at the Board of Education, okay? Those are contracts, cronyism, and corruption. Parents first, guardians, like she said, because it's not, some don't have traditional families, teachers, and I would stop at that.
So in my order, parents first, because parents lay the foundation for children. Teachers second, because they lay the educational framework for students, so to speak. The Board of Education, because we have dominion over policy and appropriation of funds. The administrative office, and the union. I've been unwavering in my support for parents throughout the duration of my campaign. It's imperative for parental input in MCPS. And we're lucky enough to be in a community where there is a lot of active involvement with parents. The parents want to be involved. They want to be intertwined. And that's something that I want to prioritize too in my style of governance.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that, parent engagement and teacher excellence are sort of the 2 key essential ingredients to student success, however you want to measure that. But also, it's the school system is in charge, is charged with creating and administering the system of education that your students receive, and you can't underestimate the importance of that, ensuring that there is quality and currency and engaging content. And so I think the system has to be in there. And then the Board of Education, again, setting policy, holding the system accountable. Yes.
Yes, so I think it's been stated that the parents are the teachers from the very beginning. In terms of the school district and the school system, the board is the what and the why, and the superintendent is how it's done. And then the most important contact, the everyday contact, is the teacher. So that's how I would lay it out. But of course, the parent is absolutely the child's first teacher, and I understand that.
But do you? I'm going to quote Lynne Harris at a opt-out board meeting where you said you felt kind of sorry for a girl who had talked about how she wanted to not be forced to read books that went against her religious beliefs, and you wondered aloud to what extent she was parroting dogma learned from her parents. That is not the actions. That is not. I'm literally quoting it right now from CARE. Okay. Not a publication that I frequently frequently cite. This is the situation in this county, and this is why many of us are here right now, because what has happened over the course of the last several years has pit this school district and people within it against parents, and that needs to stop, and that's why a lot of us here are sitting here right now.
Thank you for that.
Boo. You're religiously intolerant.
Please refrain from outbursts. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, question. So right now, if we're talking about curriculum, there's responsibility and accountability. We're here to elect the school board or the Board of Education. That's who decides the curriculum, right? There needs to be parent input. Parents can't just, we are trusting the school system to teach our kids the values, right? So the school board oversees the teachers. The teachers have the most interaction with our kids, 8 hours a day, at least it doesn't seem like 8 hours a day. But school board, parents, teachers, then we have the administration that keeps the school running, keeps the lights on. They don't do day to day with our kids. And then the teachers union, of course, they're at the bottom. So that's my
10
priority.
seconds.
Thanks.
So, just want to reiterate what everyone else is saying, but definitely the parent is the one who guides children's lives, right? We are the ones who are there day in, day out with our kids, and we want to establish our values with them, and we want them to go to school and practice those values when they're there. So obviously the parents are the ones who should be the priority and the major players when it comes to their children's education. After that, I would say the teacher, as someone who's been an educator for so long, as someone who's written curriculum, presented at conferences, been with the kids on a day-to-day basis, my interaction with them is really important. And I guide them through the day. When they fall and, when they fall, I'm the one who picks them up. So the teacher would be next. After that, I would say administrators, because they provide the structure and the framework for the teachers to operate. We look to the administrators to keep us safe. Then from there, I'd say the school board, and then finally the union. I mean, the union just does contracts, that's it. They don't care about anything else.
Thank you. I was not going to allow time for rebuttal responses during this phase of our forum in the interest of time, but I will allow Ms. Harris and anybody else who would like a quick rebuttal to respond, as there was a direct comment during the initial responses.
Well, I don't think anybody who's ever met me thinks that I don't care deeply about the students of this school system. And I see some of them in this room right now. And I would just say, as a journalist, find the clip of the meeting to which you reference.
Would any other candidate like to make a rebuttal response? Ms. Diaz.
I think one of the things that we're so disappointed by when it comes to the union is, the union and also the board, is that they've not apologized for the policies that they've put in place. We need to be humble. Our board needs to be humble. Our union needs to be humble. We've had so much time now where we're seeing these scores just go down. So Ms. Lynne Harris, would you like to issue an apology to the student? For the comment that Ms. Bethany Mandel raised. I would like to know.
Thank you, Ms.
Or
Diaz.
any of the incumbents about the policies that they put in place.
Would any other candidate like to make a rebuttal response? Okay, let's move on to the next audience question. Oh. Lots of hands up. It's okay, we're gonna move on to the next question, Ms. Frankel, thank you. For this next response, we will start here with, who did we start with last time? You know what, let's shake it up a little and let's start with District 4 this time. For these questions, we'll do Ms. Evans, Ms. Frankel will come down the line, and then we'll go to our at-large candidates for our initial responses to this next question.
Yes, can I ask my question? Okay, great. I'm actually going to step out here. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming this evening. So, you saw my signs. You probably know what kind of question I'll be asking. So it appears that central office staff have made the unilateral decision to basically decimate and eliminate autism-specific programs across MCPS. It started with Darnestown, and we found out that the cuts are now at middle school autism programs in the middle of the year. Essentially, this is undoing 10 years of progress that MCPS has made to develop these kind of autism services. So my question is, and sorry for the long background, do you agree with this decision? Are you going to let central office make such a broad policy change unilaterally without parent input? And if not, how do you intend to use the Board of Education's oversight authority to intervene in situations like these? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'll allow the candidates just a few seconds to collect their thoughts, and then Ms. Evans, it's up to you.
Sure, so thank you for that question, and you have come before the board to give public comments. I appreciate that. I received emails from you. You're gonna have a meeting on the 23rd, I believe, with the superintendent, or next week. I don't have the exact date, and I could not attend because I have a candidates forum. And so I will be out there to tour Darnestown, but what I will say is that we're not cutting. So what's happening is there's a program at Darnestown, and a lot of our children who have the same needs are driving all the way to Darnestown. So what we want to be able to do is make certain that in each of our schools, we're able to have a program that exists like it does at Darnestown, so that our students aren't on the bus for 30, 40 minutes or an hour for a program that exists at Darnestown. So thank you all for the conversation. We will not delete or do away with the program, and I will be out there to tour. But I just wanted to share with the audience what is actually happening. Thank you.
Ms. Frankel.
I do appreciate the response and explanation, but I want to let everyone know that parents chose the long bus ride. We wanted that place. It is not an issue of bus ride.
Ma'am, I appreciate your response. We'll let the candidates respond. Thank you. Ms. Frankel.
Mandel, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's my whole life. I hate that woman so much.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
Gosh,
fine,
that's
and she
terrible.
spells it wrong too. So I, over the course of COVID, heard from so many special needs parents. I'm happy to share, I don't talk about my children publicly for their privacy, but I am in agreement with you about many of these issues with special needs. And over the course of COVID, special needs kids came last. Summer school placement was made virtual, despite the fact that special needs kids are not best served online. Again and again and again, we watched MCPS put special needs kids' needs last. It is a pattern of behavior. It is a pattern of thinking that this is a pattern of behavior across MCPS, not just special needs kids. They think they know what's best for kids, and parents like yourself know the difference.
Thank you. Ms. Mandel, I am so sorry. Apologies.
It's literally my
for
whole
that.
life.
We'll move on to our District 2 candidates to respond to the question. Mr. Moy.
Each kid has unique learning appetite and speed, right? They're not all cookie cutter kids. When you build a special trust with autistic teachers or special ed teachers, change is the worst disruption. You want to be consistent. You need to continue to build on it. So forcing kids if we're going to cut this program, I don't agree with it. If we lose this program at the school that it's desired at, just to move it around to another school and force that change to happen, that's this monumentally disruptive to the child's progress. So I do not agree with that. How would I oversee this? As oversight, I would work with the board, the majority rules, and get it overturned. We don't let people go rogue.
10 seconds.
Thanks.
So I think one of the things that happened, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the announcement was made, as you said, unilaterally. There was no discussion beforehand with the parent body. Wasn't it announced through the PTA first and then central office? Yeah, that's not how you communicate with parents. One of the major, there should have been a school meeting. There should have been, we should have called parents in. There should have been just a number of meetings taking place where parental input would have been brought in. As far as oversight is concerned, I think when it comes to these types of unilateral decisions, it's important that the Board of Education meet regularly with the superintendent and have those conversations, because this oversight is not just over the system, but over the superintendent as well. And so if you have unilateral decisions like that, that makes me think that comes from the top. Isn't the Board of Education supposed to provide oversight of the superintendent as well? That needs to take place.
Thank you. Let's pass the microphone down to our at-large candidates to respond. Ms. Harris, you can go first.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here and raising this issue. And I think, there are a couple of things here that need to happen. And one is we need to get this decision right. I think it needs a relook. Realizing that the system is trying to come up with a way to address the needs of an increasing population of students with autism, and that we can't do it with the current structure that we have because there's not enough of that service. But we need to figure out the right way to maintain service and increase service for other students around the county. But I would say, really, we need to drive less miles. We do need to make it possible for kids to go to school closer to where they live. And that includes if they need a learning center. And another issue that I think the board is asking a lot of questions about right now is I think we made some too deep cuts in there were some 8% budget cut guidelines that went through all MCP offices. That was surgery with sledgehammer. I think we need to take a relook because I think that's too deep in our special education program.
Yes, so I wholesale disagree with cutting the special education program, so to speak, at Darnellstown, because I understand the importance of special education. My mother was a special education teacher too as well, and she also spent a lot of time outside of school, one-on-one time with autism, et cetera, and other disabilities, so to speak. And I also would take it a step further. I think we need to even go further and fund our special education system even more. The size of our central office has expanded by over 30%, and we have other bureaucrats and administrators that are essentially swallowing the budget. One thing specifically, like restorative justice. Restorative justice will cost us $5 million for 6 full-time positions and social workers. We need to cut that funding and spend more on paraeducators to give the students with disabilities additional resources.
I'm still in the twilight zone once again with the board's response. You just witnessed a microcosm of what happens at the school board. They make a decision, then tell you, you get mad, you tell her that's not what we wanted, but they're all about communication. Do you see what I'm saying? You just witnessed it. That's been going on for years. Okay, so here's the thing. The money, think about how much money the school board squanders. They just gave a participation trophy to Dr. McKnight of $1.3 million because you did a bad job. And they're telling your kids there's not enough money for your program? You guys have to make a decision. You want the same rhetoric laced with canned responses, written down statements, or do you want to have somebody who comes to you and says, is this going to work for your family? That's what I propose we do. We talk to you first,
10 seconds.
then we make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this question. I remember hearing from at least 2 parents who testified in front of the Montgomery County Council last week when I was there waiting to testify about funding the budget, so that we don't have to do things like cut autism-specific programs that our families are saying, no, this is what we need. If we're going to say that students and the community knows what they need, then we need to listen to our students and families and communities when they say, we need autism-specific programs. If they say that they're okay with riding the bus because this is what gets their child the services that they need and their family the services that they need, then we need to listen. I spoke to a parent last week who told me that it's not just Darnestown, that they got noticed by email with no conversation that their child who's enrolled in the Connections program will now be getting that program at an entirely different school. Their child who has adjusted finally and is finally doing well in their program because they know the school, they know the setting, they know the right to school, now has to recalibrate their entire life next year, and they need to wait maybe in a whole nother year for them to adjust and do well. So absolutely, I'm not okay with it. We need to have the community involved in these conversations before the decisions are made. Thank you.
So much what I'm going to say is a repeat of that. I think parents, it's absolutely wrong that this program change happened and you kind of by the chance found out about it when all the decisions were made. If we truly are making decisions with parents and thinking and believing that parents are very first and most important partners, it wouldn't have happened in that order. I'm really hoping that the board does look at this decision again and turn it around. If we are clear with our priorities, our student achievement data is abysmal, and our student achievement data for special education students is criminal. We cannot, even when we're looking at budget cuts needed in the county, we should not be taking it away from data that says they need more supports because things aren't working. So clarity of purpose and clarity of priorities and how we execute those decisions,
10 seconds.
Even when we have to make hard decisions, I think needs to ground MCPS and our school board so that we don't get into this, particularly because of changing placements for students who have found a community is so hard to do, and we should be thinking about that more thoughtfully.
Thank you, candidates. Jason, who has our next question?
All right, I know there's a lot of people, but I've seen this hand go up.
I was on it. Good evening. So we just touched a little on, and I'm Rosalind Hansen. I'm an MCPS parent. I'm the vice chair of Moms for Liberty Montgomery County. You just testified a little bit about or shared that our scores for reading are abysmal. So in the next 4 years, if you were elected to the board, what specifically will you do to make that change, to make it so that we have 95% graduation rate, but only 65% can read at grade level? Specifically, what will you do to make sure our kids can read?
Thank you for your question. We'll start the responses with District 2 with Mr. Mui. Pass the microphone down. Thank you. I was going to suggest that you start first, but if you'd like to pass the microphone, you're more than welcome.
So I've been very fortunate to have gotten some education in my life. Reading is critical. If you're going to come out and tackle some of these science majors and bioscience, whatnot, you're going to have to read. Everything's based on ability to be literate. So the goal is to get kids to become interested to read, right? Forcing them to read is hard to get done. Make sure they have stuff to read. Debate. Bring kids in to start debating what they're reading. That makes them have to think critically, and if they're not meeting the criteria, they don't move on. You don't artificially push kids through. That's what we're doing right now.
10 seconds.
There's a lot of the 50% rule. If you barely make it, at least you didn't fail, move on. You lose the ability to critically think at each level.
Ms. Diaz.
Yeah, so I think at the elementary school level, we need to rethink the way we teach reading and writing. We need to go back to teaching in grammar, introduce grammar instruction once again. We need to reintroduce whole books. Our students should be reading books together, entire books together, more than just one book a year at the elementary school level. And then as we proceed, as they get older, especially at the high school level, I remember when I was in high school, we were reading Dostoevsky, and this is not above the capabilities of our students. They can totally meet those levels. So we need to introduce whole books again, whole novels. Also, the dependence on Chromebooks. We need to get away from the dependence on Chromebooks. Pen and paper studies have shown that students learn best when they're physically writing their notes down. That means that we need to have actual paper in our schools. We need to have copiers that work. I remember I used to joke, do you know how many selfies I have with broken down copiers? It was the joke at Gaithersburg High School, seriously. All right, so we need to fully fund and fully equip our schools.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz.
Thank you.
Let's pass the microphone to our District 4 candidates, Ms. Mandel and then Ms. Evans.
So one of the questions that I get most frequently is, why does a mom who homeschools her kid, why is she running for school board? And this is where that answer plays in. I have taught almost 4 of my own children how to read. My 4th is going into kindergarten next year. And they're all different kids, they're all different needs. And the fact that I actually have experience teaching kids how to read with phonics. I urge everyone here to go listen to the NPR podcast, Sold a Story. You will understand a portion of why kids in this county and nationwide are not reading on grade level, but also let's have a conversation about the masks. When I watched kids in this county forced to learn behind masks from teachers who were also masked for as long as they were, again, I'm going to say it, we were extremists in this county, way too long. We did not have teachers and Board of Education administrators standing up and saying, you cannot teach the difference between a B and a D without seeing that person's lips. That is critically important and not a conversation that happened on the Board of Education.
Sure. So it is important that our students read. What MCPS did prior to the pandemic and even during the pandemic was start with the science of reading. It was piloted in a few of our schools and it's now in all of our schools. So as Ms. Mandel stated, it is important that our students have the phonics and that decoding comes with the science of reading. Before, just looking at pictures and trying to guess and figure it out just wasn't working for our students. What our teachers are doing as well now is they are able to get the training to be able to detect whether or not students have dyslexia. So that wasn't always something that was offered to our teachers, to be able to have that training. So there are a lot of things going on. And what I stated earlier, the board is doing progress monitoring. So we're looking at 3rd grade level, 6th grade, all the transition years to see how our students are doing. We're able to know how they're performing based on their schools, and that is coming up in all of our meetings. Please look forward to watching those.
Thank you, Ms. Mandel and Ms. Evans. We'll pass to our at-large candidates. Choose your order of response.
Can I go first?
Yes. Sure.
So, from 2019 to 2021, there was a 31% decrease in grade 3 math, and that was due to superfluous school closures. To kind of get back from that, we have to have aggressive, individualized, and one-on-one study sessions with students. When I was in grade school, I struggled heavily, believe it or not. I struggled heavily, and every day, my mother would spend that time with me and physically go over each core subject just for me to make it pass through primary, secondary, even high school to understand. And it actually taught me the importance of education. I need to see para-educators in the classroom to shrink the classroom sizes. Teachers are teaching with 30 students. Students aren't going to grasp a curriculum or a subject with the lack of that individualized attention. I also need after-school activities too as well to extend the curriculum and allow students to recover from those learning losses. Thank you guys so much.
So my response to that is, you want specifics. The specifics are they're reading they're just reading what's on their cell phone while in class. So me, what I plan on doing, I'm the only candidate who said, we're gonna put a cell phone ban as soon as we get in. You have to have a cell phone. These kids are distracted like nobody's business, okay? They're distracted with the bullying. They're distracted with the anti-Semitism. They're distracted with the Islamophobia. They're distracted with the guns, knives, bullying, everything else. They don't have the right state of mind when they enter the classroom, if they enter the classroom at all, because there's no attendance policy enforcement, okay? So the bottom line is we have to focus on policies that directly relate to every decision that they make. Because remember I said it was contracts, corruption, and cronyism.
10 seconds.
We have to say, after everything that comes by our desk, to say, how is this affecting reading, writing, and arithmetic, which is what we are here for. Thank you. So the cell phone ban. Thank you.
Thank you. As a mom of current 2nd and 4th grade students, I'm really horrified, quite frankly, by the proficiency rates that I see in both reading and math. And the answer is WIN. WIN is the What I Need program. It's currently being piloted in some elementary schools. The idea is that, at least in MCPS, 4 days a week for 30 minutes, students are grouped together by what they need. So if you have a child who needs more work and more support in reading, then that's what they're gonna get with other students who are similarly situated. If you have a child who needs enrichment, your child is meeting benchmarks, we don't want them sitting there bored. They need something as well, and they need support in a different way. So, this can also work at the middle and high school levels where kids are able to focus on something that they need, maybe a different course, maybe it's science, maybe there's a big game coming up and they need to practice extra, or there's a theater production, right? There are ways that we can do this, but we also need to make sure we're providing our educators with the support and perhaps even some funding, because there's additional planning that goes into this additional course. Thank you.
Oh man, I wish I had a lot more time for this. Number one, when my kid was in 5th grade, he was asked to write one 3-paragraph essay his entire 5th grade year. One. Not because his teacher was an awful teacher, he was great. Because that was the county's expectations for what 5th grade should do, and that is deplorable and unacceptable. Point 2, the fact that we're even talking about a curriculum is shocking to me. One of the reasons I'm running for school board is because the truth is we don't have a curriculum in MCPS. A backwards mapped, like what the kid should learn when and how we assess it and how we provide interventions for that does not exist here. My kid is starting, the fact that my kid starts to learn another language only in middle school in 2024 is again another reason for deplorable choices that we make as a school system. And he doesn't get a textbook. We don't find textbooks for kids that actually look at a book. And we're a school system. I played how to play with as a teacher when I was like a little kid. We're a school system. The number one thing we should be putting and getting right is the curriculum that our kids face. And it does not exist. And I would like for us to really look at that and do that.
We have one more candidate to respond.
Everything Kim said, I agree with.
Thank you. So 4 years from now, I think what we need to see is wholesale implementation of the new curriculum that embeds the science of reading throughout, and with in conjunction with the high quality professional development for our teachers, so they become true experts in that method of teaching. And that's ongoing, but it has to persist. We have to have structures of accountability that is looking on a continuous basis at how that is going in the classroom. And that, is in our elementary grades, especially when we're looking at our transition grades. But I also think we need to be, digital balance is key. We need to get books in kids' hands and pencils and paper and get away from so much screen time. But we also need to come up with non-stigmatizing direct support for our secondary students who are not reading at grade level. We cannot create a system that is not culturally responsive, and it has to be work in which they see value and engage them.
Thank you, candidates. Okay, so we're going to take one more question, and our field of candidates will have 30 seconds to respond to this question so that we can allow some quick time for closing statements. Sound okay? All right, who has the last audience question?
How you guys doing? My name is Jeremiah Pope. My son is 8 years old. He attends MCPS. He goes to a community-based school. So I'm pretty sure all you guys know what a community-based school is. One thing I will say is that I love Montgomery County. I love the school system because I'm an active parent. So I think that's key. Montgomery County is very, very, very diverse. The school system is very diverse. So what I want to know is this: how will you address the different needs of all students?
That's a very broad question for 30 seconds, candidates. We'll start with Ms. Cam and work our way down the line. 30 seconds each. Where is the microphone right now? Thank you. Rapid fire.
I think it's important for all of our students to be recognized, to know that they're known in schools. And I know that you have a little person in elementary school, and I think in general, many of our elementary schools do that, although I think it's really hard to do with 30 kids in a classroom. So I think we do need to change that. But what you'll find is that as kids get older and older, they will feel more and more disconnected because they're unknown. And I would like to make sure that we change our system from the top down with the redesigning what schools should be about, how we engage our students, so that the individual approach to student learning isn't so foreign, which is what it is right now.
Thank you so much. That was a really great question. And I would go back to the WIN program, which again helps to meet all of our students where they are and moves them forward where they need to be. So this isn't just some blanket cookie cutter program. If your child is struggling in math, they're gonna get math help. If they need enrichment, they're gonna get enrichment. If they need a counselor visit because they're having a hard time that week, then they can get that as well. But I also think we need to fully staff our schools. Our teachers, our paraeducators, our staff members, they can't connect with kids to do any of the things that any of us are talking about if there's just too many.
One of the things I do when I'm not here is I'm a flight instructor. I teach people how to fly planes, and I treat everybody as a unique individual when they walk in that door because they all have the same passion and desire. They come from a diverse group of people. You have to have those courageous cultural conversations at the beginning, and you get to know the people, the kids, the parents, and that's what enhances trust as well. Okay, thank you.
Yes, to address some of our diverse needs for all students, we have to meet parents where they're at and look them in the eyes and have nuanced conversations about the specific needs that each student needs, particularly theirs. And that's something that I intend on doing and plan on doing as a member of the Board of Education. I know we have a very large school system, 160,000 students. However, I will make it my duty to meet parents where they're at and talk to them about their kids specifically and what board members can do.
That's a great question. I think it's essential that every student's trajectory in MCPS be grounded in a solid partnership between the family and the schools where the student is engaging in learning. And that needs to be culturally responsive, and it needs to be culturally competent, and it can't be patronizing. And so making sure that is the secret sauce, but also we need to make sure that we have the personnel in our school buildings who have the training and the background and the comfortable, the confidence in addressing the needs of the very different and divergent and diverse population of learners that we have. And that's a lot of work.
So in thinking about how we continue to create access and opportunity, that looks like ensuring that we have programs in the arts. We have our students that are accelerated learners be able to access special programs and be able to meet their needs in terms of what they want to be able to do in their education. We have put a great deal of time and effort into asking our students, and we want to make certain that if you want to take AP and IB class, that you can do that at no cost. We pay the fees. So this has really been about surveying our students and making certain there's access and opportunity for our students to do whatever they want to do here in Montgomery County.
I think we need to clone parents like yourself. A man who's sitting here at 8:26 on a Monday night with a notepad in his hand talking about holding board members accountable. And I think that we need to ensure that more parents like yourself are sitting in classrooms and as engaged as you possibly can be. Over the course of the last 5 years, but especially over COVID, I heard from so many parents who were locked out of the classroom. We need to reinvigorate those connections and make sure that parents have a voice in the classroom on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks, Jeremiah. When my daughter, through hard work, my daughter was considered gifted in Georgia. When she came here to third grade, she repeated second grade. That's what we were learning here. There was no program for my daughter to step up until she got to 4th grade. Then she was able to do the 4-5 split. Now she's currently in 5th grade doing the 5-6 split. So we need to make sure we tailor our education. We can't leave kids behind.
I would love to see elementary school programs be creative and diverse. So I just wrote a list right now of things I would love to see. We should have elementary school programs that are Montessori, like an option for a Montessori program, an option for an outdoor, maybe nature school. We should have a classical education school if that's what you would like. I mean, right now we offer immersion programs. We offer French, Spanish, and Chinese, right? Maybe we can have a parent co-op school where the parents like partially run the school. I mean, we can be creative in education here in Montgomery County. We have gifted teachers. It's time to put them in place. Like, let's utilize them.
Thank you, candidates. I would like to give you each now, time is 8:28. We are pressed for an 8:30 end. 30 seconds each to close out. What is your motivation for running for Board of Ed, and why should these wonderful people in our audience this evening vote for you? We'll start with Ms. Diaz here and work our way all the way back down.
You know, the reason why I'm here tonight is because I've dedicated my life to education. I've taken on multiple roles. Whatever you can think of, I've done it. And then I also homeschool my youngest. And in having a homeschooler, I've had to craft a curriculum just for her. I love teaching. I love being with students. And I'm dedicated to making sure that MCPS is excellent again.
Thank you for this opportunity to convey my thoughts. Our children need to be ready for the 21st century. They need to be the ones ready for biological science. Maybe they'll cure cancer. We're going to make a lot of advances in biotech and manufacturing. Our kids are not ready. When they graduate, they're very difficult to find jobs if we don't step up and take care of their future. Thanks. Rick Moy.
So the question for me is, why am I running in District 4? I'm going to give you an overview of who I'm running against. Ms. Stewart, who didn't bother to show up tonight, is a representation of the cronyism that has controlled the school board up to this point. Ms. Evans, who is the longest serving school board member on the Board of Education currently, is a continuation of what has gone wrong in Montgomery County thus far. If you would like change, I am the only person running in District 4.
So the reason why I'm running is the same as when I first started: access and opportunity for our students. I want every student to be able to reach their full potential. And I don't only just work on the school board at the local level, I am an officer at the state level as well. I'm talking to my counterparts not only throughout the state of Maryland, but when I attend National School Board Conference throughout the country. And what I do know is that Montgomery County is a great public school system that is not perfect, but continues to get better. And we can only get better if we have parents engaged as yourself. So thank you.
My motivation for running is the amazing students that I work with in this school system every single day. And the reason that I want to continue to do this work is because I see we have a ways to go to create the kind of system in which students learn to be critical thinking problem solvers, ready to enter the global world outside this county when they leave us, and are truly prepared to see value in everybody around them.
When it comes to opt-out, my message has been unwavering. Regarding restorative justice, I've articulated its valuability. Adequate compensation for support staff, we demanded wage parity for paraeducators. Concerning students, we've demanded individualized learning mechanisms, extended learning opportunities, and CTE expansion. MCPS is in dire need of a third-way centrist who is steadfastly prioritizing educational competence in lieu of political ideology. It would take monumental turnout from the Montgomery County body politic. We need your support. Please come out May 2nd and vote for Fitz in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Sharif Hidayat. Visit our website, votesharif.com. The reason why I'm running is I'm a parent. I have kids. 2 kids in elementary school, so I have a long way to go in the system, so I want to make sure I have a vested interest that this works. I'm also running because of how much I see how dysfunctional it is. It's very dysfunctional. I'm a former cop, believe me. When it comes to transparency, I'll find where the problems are and I will bring it to everybody's attention, and there will be accountability at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Rita Montoya, and I'm running because I am living MCPS every single day. My kids are 8 and 9. I'm a PTA president of a local elementary school. I deal with all of the issues, even when they don't personally affect my family, I hear about them from other families. MCPS is facing enormous challenges, closing achievement gaps, making sure our buildings are repaired and renovated, making sure our kids are free from violence, harm, and hate. I'm a mom and a lawyer, and I'm ready to stand up and fight for your students and mine to make sure that our kids are getting the education they deserve. Montoya for MCPS, thank you.
I think so much of the school system needs a complete redesign and a much clearer point of view. Generally, if I had to boil it down, I would say that what is needed is a higher expectation of what is possible and a system to hold people accountable to those expectations. If I were to answer your question a little bit differently, I would say it's our job to hold the superintendent and the team accountable to making sure every kid gets what they need, and I know that's possible. Our kids are amazing, every single one of them, and I think as they spend more time in our schools, they are more dulled and they're more stressed out versions of themselves, and I would like to recreate a way of doing school so that that pattern doesn't continue.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of our candidates for spending the evening with us tonight. I'd like to also welcome Jason Makstein to share some closing comments.
So I just wanted to, first of all, thank the candidates again for showing up. I really appreciate each and every one of you and all the people here. It's pretty amazing to see everyone here in person. I know we've had a lot of interactions online with probably almost all of you, if not all of you, and up here as well. So just wanted to, thank everyone for coming out. I really appreciate the support here, online, the people that helped donate to make this event possible, and Paula did a great job. Can we have a round of applause? This is my first in-person event, and having somebody who is really rock solid there moderating was huge for me because it would not have been as good if I had done it. Let's be real. So just really appreciate everyone. Feel free to come say hi to me or the candidates if they want to on the way out. I know it's late, so if people need to go, that's all right too. Just wanted to say thank you again, so thanks.
Thank you, Jason, for hosting this forum. Thank you to Moderately MOCO. Thank you to our candidates and to our attendees. Have a lovely evening.
Hold on, one more thing. Sorry, one more thing. The Board of Elections is here, and we want to appreciate them showing up, and just want to say that they need election workers, 16 and up, SSL hours. You can see the table back there, or their online presence. So, thank you.